Broadcasting live from the end of the world. This is the Escape Podcast. Hello. Okay. Yeah, we have suddenly a bunch of time on our hands, especially me.
Too much time on my hands. Sticks.
So we were talking and thought it might be a good time to just start doing some episodes. We haven't done one in a little while. I think this will be the first one for this month.
Yes.
And you had the bright idea of starting with Outbreak.
Yeah, but in hindsight, this is probably something a lot of people are going back on. It's just kind of funny. I watched it like maybe 2-3 weeks ago before. I mean, you were starting to hear a little more about this, but it hadn't broken out quite like this. And I just remembered watching it from, back in the day. But probably one of those movies I would have watched anyway, even if this wasn't happening. But once I watched, I was like, dang, because people were worried about this coming over. And I think that's when they still had like those cruise ships, where people couldn't get off of them and, trying to keep it locked down. And now it's just, ridiculous. But
for anybody listening in the future, we're talking about the current coronavirus stuff.
Corona 2020.
I wasn't too concerned with it at first. I thought it was being overhyped. I still think it's being slightly overhyped, but yeah, it's more of a deal than I expected it to be.
Right.
A lot of people are getting laid off right now, including myself. Right now, you're still working.
True that. Because I'm a central dog.
I would rather be working. I need the money. It's funny, business, and I work in the shipping industry. And business started to slow down. It usually does at the end of the year. Like starting with Thanksgiving, there's a whole slew of holidays coming up, right? So everything starts to get slower, and then January is usually pretty slow. And a lot of the business, especially around here, because we live in the Detroit area, is
shout out 313.
Yeah, is moving auto parts.
Right.
So if the auto companies decide to shut down, then that's bad for us.
I heard recently that Ford, Ford is transferring over to making respirators now. And then a guy at work was telling me that a guy he knows that works for like a beer place is now switching over to make hand sanitizer.
Yeah, well, it's smart.
Absolutely. It reminds me though, was it World War II when the auto industry was switching over to like tanks and planes and stuff?
And automobiles.
Yeah.
Wait, that's
yeah.
Planes, trains, and automobiles.
Mm-hmm.
That was just John Candy and Steve Martin. They were doing that.
Okay, my bad.
But yeah, so on top of already slow business, I got laid off from the job that I had before, and then I actually found a better one in a bigger company.
You want to throw out some names?
No, and then 3 weeks in, they had to start laying people off due to virus stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say how I knew it wasn't long for you. I didn't know it was only 3 weeks, man.
Yep. So I got one more paycheck coming, and then after that, hopefully I get unemployment. I don't know. I just hope all this stuff ends relatively quickly.
Right. Yeah, so we're recording remotely. We don't do this too often. I can't even remember the last time we did this.
We used to do it via YouTube and Hangouts combined.
And I guess they dropped support for that now, so we found a new way in Zencastr. So
hopefully this works out. Maybe this will end our slew of technical difficulties and begin a new one.
And Zencastr has been really cool because now they're offering more free recording time because of this for podcasters. I thought that was pretty cool.
So how have you been affected? Anything changed for you, really?
Well, let's see. So Brittany, she works at a orthodontic office, and she also is now, her doctor decided to close doors on that. So she's not.
Yeah, now would probably not be the time to be climbing into people's mouths.
Right. So, there's that. Other than that, I don't feel like it's, just staying home more, not that I was one to really get out and run around all the time, but it's weird. I heard, all these rumors that Michigan was going to, go to lockout and, make everybody stay home except for groceries. Today, they passed out letters to us at work to say, basically, if we get pulled over by the police, it shows that we're considered essential workers and that we are okay to be out.
Well, yesterday, the governor declared that the lockdown.
Which I kept hearing about, but But I didn't know that they were actually going to do it. But people kept talking about it though. But yeah, I guess here we are.
It's weird for me because I have a long history with allergies and asthma. And this is, as we're recording right now, it's March 24th. So this is like prime allergy season. So I'm already just sitting around kind of being miserable with itchy eyes and sneezing, coughing,
Right,
short of breath all the time. So like now I have to have this in my head too. And I noticed with my asthma too, some of the times it's more of a psychological thing. Like if
right.
I'm driving down the road and I realize, oh no, I left my inhaler at home, that's when I'll start to get an attack. Um, so, I've been feeling kind of funky at home, but like I don't have a fever. I don't really have too many of the symptoms except
Mhm.
for the ones that I always have.
Right.
So I don't know what to do. I'm just laying in bed. I just bought a Switch recently. You know that.
Yeah, the last time we saw each other in person, you hit me up about let's run to Meyer real quick, and yeah, that was what was that 2 weeks ago now? I think.
Yeah, about that. It was about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Animal Crossing game was coming out for Switch, and I've been a huge fan of that game franchise. So I decided to go get one, and I guess it's good timing. I mean, other than spending the money, but now I'm stuck at home, so I've
Mm-hmm.
been playing the crap out of my Switch.
Right.
And yeah, I think it's a pretty cool little system, but we can talk about that some other time.
Yeah. So, Brango, what do you got for me on Outbreak? Anything?
Well, I thought you were doing the trivia,
I
so
don't
why don't
have
you
much.
start?
I'll give you what I got. So, it's
This episode brought to you by
a
Outback
Outback
Steakhouse.
Steakhouse. Don't go there. You can't get in. All right. So, Outbreak was based on Richard Preston's 1994 novel called The Hot Zone. It was made on a budget of 50 million and made 189 million. It has the critical Rotten Tomato score of 60% and an audience score of 56%. It spent 3 weeks at number one until Tommy Boy was released. It was directed by Wolfgang Peterson, who many of you might know from The Neverending Story, Enemy Mine, which is one I am looking forward to doing, In the Line of Fire, Air Force One, The Perfect Storm, etc. Stars Dustin Hoffman, Rene Russo, Morgan Freeman, Cuba Gooding Jr., Kevin Spacey, and Donald Sutherland. Harrison Ford was intended to play Sam Daniels, which I could totally see him in that role. And the monkey, Betsy, was the same monkey from Brandon's all-time favorite TV show, Friends, Marcel Ross's monkey. So I thought that I throw that out there since you're
Which friend was the monkey?
that was Ross's friend, your favorite
It was
character,
Ross?
Ross.
Okay. I'd like to comment on the main character's name.
Okay, Sam Daniels.
So his name is Samuel Daniel.
Yeah, Samuel Daniel.
Okay, it's just a weird choice of names, I think.
Okay, there's a guy I knew at work. His name was Rob Ert, last name Ert, but if you say his full name, it was Robert Ert, and I always thought that was kind of goofy. Yeah,
Why would somebody do that to their
I know,
kid?
because he always went by Rob, but yeah, he didn't like being called Robert Ert, because
Well, why would you?
yeah.
I had never seen this movie, and I do remember it being kind of a big deal when it came out, and it came out in 1995. I remember being in elementary school, and they had the book,
Okay.
and even back then, I felt like this was based on Ebola, but I didn't know anything about Ebola. I still don't really,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what it's about. An African virus going haywire. Sounds like it wasn't too many years ago where they really attacked Ebola. I remember they brought people into the States and they were working on curing it.
No, I don't actually. I guess.
Oh yeah, that was a few years ago.
Oh no, I'm not up on that.
Um, and I remember thinking Ebola was kind of a scary thing. I
Mm-hmm.
remember seeing like probably images from this movie where people like bleeding out of their eyes and stuff.
Yeah. So okay, what are the symptoms in this movie? People are,
A
sweating.
terrible fever.
They have fever. They're bleeding out of their eyes. I thought I remember them saying their organs became like liquefied when Rene Russo cut the guy open. She said like his organs had liquefied or something.
It's something like that. Like it attacks your organs
Yeah.
first. You end up getting a terrible fever, one hot enough to melt your brain basically,
Yeah.
and then you get like lesions all over your body,
Oh
like
yeah, lesions.
blisters,
That's right. Yeah.
sores with like pus and blood pouring out.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like a fun thing to go
No.
through.
No.
Fortunately, the virus we're dealing with today is more of a respiratory thing, and it's not quite that bad.
Yeah.
In this movie, they said it had a 100% death rate. The movie opens up actually in the 60s, and I didn't know what exactly was going on because it seemed like there were American soldiers there, but it was in Africa in the 60s. And at first I thought it was Vietnam until they showed that it was an African village, and I didn't know exactly what it was. I guess that was something called the Stanleyville Mutinies. They had something to do with Spain, and I
Hmm.
don't know how involved we were, but there's not a lot of information on Wikipedia about it.
Okay.
But we see this little village in the middle of Africa somewhere, which I assume was actually filmed in Hawaii. And this village is overrun with some crazy virus. Two guys in hazmat suits get out from the military, get out of a helicopter, come check everyone out. And they're like, everybody's going to be okay. They take a blood sample, they leave, and then
Right.
they come back and destroy it. That was actually a pretty crazy scene.
Yeah, so I remember when I saw that as a kid, that was just like a scary thought because they're thinking it's like supplies or something coming down, and just the idea of just watching something like that. You once the doctor there, he realized what was happening, but I mean, there's nothing you can do. There's no point in running. You can't outrun it. And I looked it up. Apparently, that bomb, I think they said it's the most powerful non-nuclear weapon, and
So it's a Moab.
yeah, I think so. And like it's designed to suck air in when it explodes or something. Like I don't know how that exactly works, but like yeah, it pulls stuff toward it or something. Um, Interesting.
It's a graviton bomb.
Word.
No, it's I think the largest non-nuclear bomb is called the Moab for short. It's Mother of all bombs is what that
Oh,
stands
okay.
for. Yeah, I didn't know what bomb that was. I was guessing it was that because it didn't look like a nuke, but it did look very, very large.
Yeah.
But that whole scene was crazy, and just even when they first walked in and you saw how everybody was sick and dying, it was pretty scary looking.
Yeah.
And then again later, when we see people like that, it's just as bad. So it flash forwards to the 90s,
Right.
and we get Dustin Hoffman and Rene Russo are separating. They're in the middle of a
Which
divorce.
I don't know if they say what had caused that. I mean, not that it's super relevant, but it's clearly something she wants, he doesn't.
Yeah, they established their they established their attitudes towards it without going too deep into it,
Hmm.
and they repeatedly established it. They really wanted you to know that they were in a previous relationship.
Right.
At when we first see them, they're just working together, and we assume there was like some kind of romantic thing there. But then later on, he goes and takes the dogs to her house, and that's when they start fighting.
Right. Yeah.
And this reminded me actually of
Mrs.
Independence Day.
Doubtfire. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that
Oh
too.
no,
Yeah, I can see that.
no, no! For me, it's like Jeff Goldblum in
Yeah. No, you're
Independence
right.
Day,
Yeah.
the relationship he had with his wife.
Right. Where clearly he wants to be with her, she doesn't want to be with him. Yeah. I can see that.
And then, spoilers in the end, they reignite their feelings, so to speak, for each other.
Right. Now, I guess they're
Um,
supposed to indicate that the two hazmat wearing Americans from the beginning are actually supposed to be Donald Sutherland and Morgan Freeman. That they had that when they see
yeah, they
this
don't.
disease presently, that was supposed to be like they saw it firsthand back in the 60s when they were, there. And I guess there's supposed to be some clues that it is them at the beginning. I can't remember what it was, but I guess there's some indication if you look for it that to let you know that it is Donald Sutherland there.
Yeah, they don't make it super clear at first, but they do reveal it, and then it's not supposed to be a big mystery or anything. But I think when you watch it, if you listen to their voices, because they're completely covered up in those hazmat suits and you can't see them, that I think it was probably the actors actually doing their own voiceovers for that.
Okay.
At least Donald Sutherland was, it sounded like to me, for sure. And if they did it with him, then they had to have done it with Morgan Freeman.
Right.
This movie has quite the cast, by the way. Dustin Hoffman, Rene Russo, Morgan Freeman, Donald Sutherland, Cuba Gooding Jr.,
Yep. Kevin
Kevin
Spacey.
Spacey.
Yep.
It's pretty crazy. I don't know if I've seen too many Dustin Hoffman movies, actually.
What's the one where he's in prison? Him and Steve McQueen, is it? I saw that one.
See, I don't even know.
Um, it's like I think it's like the 60s.
Was he in Tootsie?
He was Tootsie, yeah.
Okay, so I know that one. I know he was in the Meet the Fockers.
Yeah. I mean, well,
He was,
I think he was in the sequel. Was Meet the Parents the original, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, then yeah, he was in the sequel.
So he's Ben Stiller's dad in that movie,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And then obviously everybody's seen Hook. That's our age. He
Oh
was
yeah, that's
Captain
right.
Hook in
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Outside of that, I haven't really seen him. I never saw Rain Man.
Oh yeah, I did see Rayman. Okay, yeah, you're refreshing my
So
memory.
I'm not super familiar with his work, but before we started, I opened up this room over here for us to watch some videos. So seeing Dustin Hoffman in this reminded me so much of Ric Flair, and I don't know exactly what it was. It's something about his
You had
voice.
to bring
And
wrestling into it.
and I'm just gonna play this little clip here for you if you want to hop over to that room real quick.
I'm there. You don't want to watch Emily
So
Roberts and Pike and somebody
no, I
else?
had enough of that
All
already.
right, they're in this together, you know.
So it's been a while since I've seen this promo. Let me know if any of it, like the way he speaks, reminds you of Dustin Hoffman. Although this is gonna be like Dustin Hoffman amped up to like on a scale of 1 to 10 up to 50.
Okay.
Mr. Blanchard and Mr. Arn Anderson and the world heavyweight champion himself, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Tony Schiavone, how many women have you looked at and said, come back when you go, baby? Huh? How many 17-year-old girls
These guys are always so
approach
crazy.
the world champion every day? And I have to say,
What's
because
crazy about
I'm
what
a
he's saying?
man.
You know, it's just,
back
everything is
when you
the
grow
yelling
up, girl.
and like it just always
Well,
seems like
look
they're
out! Some people, I'll tell you
Ready
what,
out?
out of their minds.
be in the Army
You know, I don't know.
next
Whatever.
Sunday, and I'll
So,
do it again.
Yeah,
Only
we can
I'll do
we can
it.
stop this now.
You
Pause
look
it. So yeah, if to me, if Dustin Hoffman were insane and yelling, that's exactly what he would sound
I mean,
like.
I
with
can
a
almost see
slight
what you're
lisp.
saying in the part where he does get, you know, more passionate and raises his voice, but other than that, I don't really see it. To be, I never actually, I don't know much about Ric Flair. I don't know if I've ever really heard him really talk. That might be the first time. Yeah, I'm not up on that. This is you and John's department.
Right. Yeah. Maybe we'll get John on here one time for another wrestling movie or something.
That ain't gonna happen.
So yeah, he was okay in this. I believed him as a scientist, a military scientist. That's what he was, right?
Yeah. So yeah, at first when they showed that he's a scientist, I thought he was just a scientist. Then later he's in, you know, his uniform. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, he's a military scientist. I thought there was going to be that contrast of him not being military because he doesn't really like do too much that, you know, like he seems more like a scientist to me. But you know, I almost feel like they could have had him be just a scientist to have that conflict between the military, like, you know, with Morgan Freeman and Donald Sutherland about, you know, where he's supposed to go and what he's supposed to do. But, you know, once I learned that Harrison Ford was originally considered for this part, I was like, I could really see that. Like, in fact, I almost wonder if it would have been a little better with him. Any thoughts on that?
I didn't mind Dustin Hoffman in
It's
it.
not that I minded, but once I found out, like, oh, Harrison Ford was thought for this, I was like, you know, kind of envisioning that, and I could see him more in that role.
Was the Air Force One he was in around
Yes,
this
which
time?
was also Wolfgang Peterson.
So, although he's known for many roles, it would be hard to see Harrison Ford in this role without really thinking of either that or The Fugitive or Star Wars
Really?
or Indiana Jones. I would think so. Mostly those other dramatic ones.
I feel like Harrison Ford has done pretty well at diversifying his roles, although he is mostly a good guy. In fact, the only movie I can think of him being a bad guy was What Lies Beneath. But other than that, he's pretty much always a good guy. And I don't know, I guess I could just see him, you know, that passion for finding the cure and saving this town, saving the United States, saving his wife. Like, I don't know, I could just totally see him in that role. It just seems like it would have fit well for him and he could have done well with it.
So, did he turn this down to do that Amish movie?
Witness? No, I think Witness was way before. That was late 80s, I think.
Oh, was it?
I
Okay.
think. Now you got me wondering. But I don't know why exactly, why he turned it down, if it was too much money or if there was conflicting schedules with something else. But
So Rene Russo, apparently they probably met because they're in the same line of work. She's also
it's one of those things that might have been explained more in the book. But yeah, they didn't really go into it, like I said, how they met or why they were getting divorced.
Yeah, there were parts of this movie that I didn't quite. Yeah, there were parts of this movie that I didn't quite understand. I don't know if it's because I wasn't paying attention enough, or because they were kind of glossing over things, or maybe it was a little bit of both.
Could be, yeah.
and they work with Kevin Spacey, who's almost the comic relief in this movie in a way. Him and Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah, okay, so Cuba Gooding Jr. is clearly like the,
Fresh
newer
recruit.
guy. He's a little bit more, because he just probably got out of, academy or basic training or whatever. He's a little more fresh, so
He seems a little more
by the
military
book,
and a
yeah.
little less. Yeah.
Where Kevin Spacey's, this is a dangerous disease, and he throws the vial at him and catch it and almost dropping it, just messing with him. There's a few times where they try to do some comedy and it just doesn't work for me. Obviously, this is not that's not what it's supposed to be, but like the few times they do comical stuff, it just didn't really fly for me. Like him talking to his dogs. Who started this? Who left the bathtub? I told you, he's washing these 2 St. Bernards at the beginning. He's in the middle of that and the phone rings and he's like, stay here. And of course they get out and crawl right in the bed all wet. Was it you? It's supposed to be funny, I guess. I don't know. Whatevs. It didn't really work for me, but
it was a little.
What?
Sometimes it was a little goofy and sometimes it was a little dry.
Right. So basically we have a similar disease from the 60s.
So what happened was there was an outbreak in a village. Everybody in the village died. They called in Dustin Hoffman to come and check it out. So Dustin Hoffman, Cuba Gooding Jr., and Kevin Spacey go there to check it out. They get freaked out. We've never seen anything like this before. Everybody's dead. Cuba Gooding Jr. in this scene does something pretty stupid. They're trying to prepare him. Like, you're going to see some gross stuff when we get there. There's going to be people dead and disgusting looking. And he's like, yeah, I know. I already read all about it. So they get in there. And he starts freaking out, and he's in the hazmat suit. He starts puking.
It was the scene. Okay, so yeah, they have these like mosquito nets over the beds or whatever, and he pulls one back, and it's the father and the mother dead with their little 3-year-old child in the middle of them crying, and that is a pretty devastating. It's pretty heavy. I'm such a softie now that I have a kid, so anytime I see things like that now, I feel.
Oh. The visuals for the first part of the movie are all like, they're very strong. When they bomb the village and then when they go and they check out this village, like, it's all very strong imagery. But they warned him ahead of time. They told him no matter what, don't freak out. We don't need you to freak out.
Yeah. So he's starting to throw up, and it's that type of thing. When you're in that situation, it's disgusting, but you're going to have to just throw up all over yourself because, you don't want to get a disease. So he starts trying to take off his helmet. And Kevin Spacey and Dustin Hoffman are trying to grab him and restrain him, but he gets it off. Then you find out it's not airborne yet.
Yeah, there's another doctor that's already at the village, and he says it's not airborne.
Right. The native doctor there, he's not wearing any kind of protective gear that I remember. He's definitely not wearing a mask or anything.
So yeah, he rips off his helmet. They say it's not airborne and everything's fine. But there's one guy at the village that didn't get anything. And it's the local juju man, they say. So he's like a voodoo doctor. And he believes the gods are angry when they start cutting down trees.
Now he is staying isolated though too. He's up on the hill,
right,
kind of looking down at them. So is it because of that?
They suspect that whatever it was inside the well that everybody drank from.
So, but we're led to believe that the reason that this village is now infected from the same disease from the 60s is because animals, specifically monkeys, are able to carry it. It doesn't affect them like it does us, but. So
because they are also like immune to it, like they have the antibody
right.
Inside of them.
So somewhere down the line, a monkey from the 60s, and its offspring got to, I assume, must have bit right one of the modern day, the natives, right, and that's how it started up again. Or
in the movie, I don't think they really showed it, but if I'm looking at the plot on Wikipedia, and it says that they were testing the virus on monkeys in the area, and then it spread from there into the soldiers.
Okay.
So, yeah, it turns out that basically Morgan Freeman and Donald Sutherland are somewhat bad guys, especially Donald Sutherland in this, because they created the virus as a weapon and then didn't really do anything about it. I don't know if it was them acting on their own or if they were following somebody else's orders, but either way, they didn't want anybody to know that they made it.
They took the disease from the 60s that they encountered and realized they could weaponize it.
Yeah.
Is that okay, right?
It's either that or they created it.
See, I was thinking it meant it was a natural disease that started infecting people, but once they saw it, they thought like, okay, we could use this.
Okay, it says a virus called Motaba, which causes a deadly fever, is discovered in the African jungle. So yeah, they found it and they decided they wanted to use it as a weapon. They also had the cure for it, which they held on to.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess they didn't want anybody finding out about the virus. Like they wanted to keep it as secret as they could, or they didn't want anybody to know that they destroyed their own troops.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, that
Uh,
makes sense if the U.S. military or any military, kills their own people. Yeah, you
yeah.
probably wouldn't
And
want
at
that to
this
get out.
point, we start getting lots of shots of monkeys. It's our first clue that the thing has something to do with monkeys in
Right.
the movie. I got to thinking afterwards, how exactly do you get a hazmat suit off? Like, let's say you're in a hazmat suit, and whatever it is that you're trying to protect yourself from is probably on your suit. So how do you
Well,
get it
there's the
off?
showers. You see a lot when they're leaving those rooms. They have these showers, rinses them off. Did you ever see The Rock, Nicolas Cage, Sean Connery?
Okay, I was immediately thinking of
No,
WWF.
The Rock was. You know what I'm talking about? Did you ever see it?
I never did.
Oh, okay. It's the same thing. So in that movie, Nicolas Cage is studies like infections and diseases, and the same thing when they have to study. They go into like this air sealed room to like study something, and when they go out, they have to have showers that come down and like to wash your suit off before you would even take it off. And I thought they showed that in here too.
They kind of did, but it just like I figured you probably. Yeah, they kind of showed that, but I was thinking about it. Like you wouldn't want to touch your suit anyway. Like I guess I don't know how it works.
Right.
Does it clean the whole suit so you can reuse it, or do you have to burn it afterwards?
Well,
Are you safe after that? I guess you'd have to
they
be.
do show that at one point, they're suiting up, and Kevin Spacey happens to notice that Dustin Hoffman's suit has a tear in it, and he wraps it up with duct tape. And which is funny. That's one of the scenes that stands out to me from when I was a kid and saw this. Like, it was a scary thought because I never, as a kid, I never thought about diseases too much. But and I remember the scene where he's looking up at the air vents and he realizes this one person in the hospital who's quarantined has now spread it. I used to work at a hospital, and there was actually negative pressure rooms. So it was these rooms were designed to suck air in from the outside rooms, but not take it back out. So you would literally have a door I'd have to go into, shut that door, and there was all this gear. I had to wear these little like essentially like a hairnet for your shoes. They called them booties. You had to wear an apron. You'd wear like usually 2 pairs of gloves. I had a hairnet essentially, and then this mask. And you would have to go in, take care of the patient, come out, shut that door. You stripped everything off right there. There was a sink right in the little between area to wash out, and you weren't supposed to. If you left there, even if it was a normal room, if I had to glove up for a room and then leave for anything, I had to take everything off, whether it was gloves, whatever, come back in and get all new. And that's the thing we're hearing now with the with what's happening, that apparently there's not enough of these masks to go around, where they're telling doctors, nurses, nurse aides, all that stuff, they have to use the same mask. And that's just crazy to me, since I worked in that field. Like you could get in trouble back then if someone saw you walking out with a mask or the same pair of gloves out into the hall and then going back into the room or going to a different patient's room. That, like, you get huge trouble for that. And now they have no choice but to wear these masks out and out. And I was saying to somebody, like, well, the mask is designed to like catch and keep the whatever germs or whatever from getting into you, and you're wearing it from room to room, and that's just insane to me. But
What's funny is I worked at a battery plant for a minute, and I almost had to go through the exact same procedure where I had to walk into the room, I had to gown up, basically put on this like oversuit,
right,
and I had to put the booties on my shoes, I had to put the mask on, I had to wear a hairnet, all sorts of stuff like that, just to go build these batteries for
wow,
electric cars. What's funny is I worked at an X-ray machine, and I feel like I probably got an unhealthy dose of radiation poisoning because after a few weeks of working there, every day on my way home, I would just crave lime juice, and I looked up like a craving for citrus on the internet because the internet's a good doctor to ask, right?
Dr. Google.
And it said one of the things you may be craving citrus for is radiation
Oh,
poisoning, and I just
yikes.
so happened to be working at an X-ray
So
machine.
that's why you glow.
So they cared so much about their batteries to where they had to protect the batteries from us, but they didn't protect us from the batteries.
Yeah, that sounds like good business.
Yeah. Anyway, so At this time, they leave. They go back to tell everybody it's the worst thing they've ever seen. They want to warn everybody and start working on it. And nobody wants to listen to them. Meanwhile, a Chinese gentleman is seen trapping a monkey from that area, which the
Right.
timing had to be so crazy because like I was talking about it with Christy. Like it's according to the movie, the way they made it look is it all happened at once. At the same time that they discovered this virus is when it got out. It seems to me like there should have been a time where it's like 3 months later, a year later, something like that. They shows like a monkey getting loose and biting everybody, but they didn't. They almost made it seem, and I think that it was instantly. So the second he says this thing could be a lot of trouble, we got to start working on it now. And Morgan Freeman says, "Well, no, I don't think so." The monkey gets out and everybody starts getting sick, and everybody starts getting sick in the dumbest way possible. Just like I said that.
Okay, Patrick Dempsey is in this movie, very brief part. So yeah, he works at a place where they have like exotic animals. I'm not exactly sure what that was all about, but he's clearly kind of this PETA type guy. So he's sneaking animals out. He pays the guard off to
not
leave.
PETA. He's selling the exotic animals to a pet shop for
my
big cash.
PETA. Yeah, so he pays the guard to let him sneak this monkey out. The monkey spits in his face.
What else has Patrick Dempsey been in?
He wasn't ER, was he?
I don't know. I
know he's kind of the like he plays more of the grunge guy kind of in this movie. Which when I saw him in that, I remember when I first heard of it, it was McDreamy. All the women were swooning over him. You know, Mr. Stud.
Since he's in Grey's Anatomy, but I felt like
Grey's Anatomy. Okay,
I felt like I recognized him from something else, and I forgot to look him up. And
I feel like he's always in like girl movies. He's always like the stud. It was funny to see him as 90s grunge guy.
I'm gonna go through a list right now of just a couple things I may recognize him from. Meatballs 3.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it. He was in Scream.
Is this gonna pay off?
No, not really. Okay, so that's way okay. He played the baby in Bridget Jones's Baby.
Awesome. So, anyways, he takes it to the pet store owner. That pet store owner gets scratched, I believe, or was it bitten?
Yeah, he gets scratched.
He's scratched.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't want it because he wanted a male monkey. So Patrick Dempsey does, the ethical thing. He lets it go in the woods, and of course, it goes.
This is how you get Bigfoot.
There's reasons. We're not supposed to bring foreign animals into places. You ever hear about this thing that happened with
the Loch Ness
our
Monster?
lakes here? One of our lakes here back in the day, like I guess it was the type of thing where there was an overgrowth of algae at one point, or something like that. They brought in something, I forgot what it was, that ate the algae, but that thing was, I can't remember if it was a fish or what, but it went and it like multiplied like crazy, and it was taking over where the regular native fish weren't able to thrive as much because eating the food supply or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then they brought something else in to kill that off, and just everything, they had to keep bringing something else in until finally.
It's like the lady that swallowed a fly.
Yes.
She had to keep swallowing more things. Well, now she's got to eat a frog. Now she's got to eat a cat. Now she's got to eat a dog.
Just like that. And that happened with raccoons. I remember one time I watched this special about, apparently in Japan there was this cartoon about a little boy and his pet raccoon. I guess it became this thing to export raccoons over to Japan. And, people would have them as pets. And then eventually, as they figured out they weren't good pets, they were just letting them go. And they said that, over there, they have like these, temples that were like super old and preserved and, wood. And these raccoons were just scratching the crap out of them and tearing things up. And they were, again, the food supply for what animals were native to that area, like just becoming a nuisance. And now it's like a kill on sight thing where like basically it's considered like doing your civic duty if you see a raccoon over there to kill it, because it's such a strain on, the ecosystem over there.
Like, the Everglades are filled with pythons and monkeys and all that kind of stuff now. People just letting things go.
Yeah. So anyway,
back in the movie, he decides to hop on a plane, and halfway through his plane trip, he already looks like he's about to die. And that's when the little kid comes up and wants to eat his cookie.
Oh, yeah. I was like, oh, goodness, please don't let this kid eat this cookie. Yeah, and his mom steps in just in time to stop that. But I was thinking, oh man, this whole plane's going to get
Yeah.
sick. But I can't remember if that point, they later revealed that it's mutated somewhat, right? There's like two versions of it, one that is airborne, one that isn't. Am I remembering
Yeah,
that
that's a
correctly?
little bit later, but that part happens.
Okay.
It
Plane.
becomes a thing between like whether they had the original strain or the mutated strain, and
Right. He comes out looking like death, and his girlfriend's just like
yeah,
making
she
out
even
all over him.
comments
I
on it.
was
She's
like,
like, "You look horrible," and then
really?
she proceeds to stick her tongue in his mouth.
Yep. Let me check your fever here. It was pretty nasty.
And then we just see it get spread. Like every stupid person that could possibly get it gets it. So they go to the movie theater and the guy's like coughing right in people's faces, and
Oh yeah.
it's ridiculous. Like they could have kept it a little more realistic, where just like a handshake would have done it, but they had to make everybody as stupid
Well,
as possible in order to spread it.
so last episode or the episode before that, we and I had talked about King Kong 1933 was coming back
Oh
to
yes.
one of our local theaters for like this flashback thing. And I was super excited. I was like, yes, I want to see that. King Kong is one of my favorite movies, blah, blah, blah. But this was just, again, it wasn't even still as bad as this, but it was we're just more cases. And I don't even know.
It was like the day after is when they decided to shut down the theaters. So
Okay. Yeah. Theaters were still open. And I was wanting to go, and we had just like dropped a whole bunch of money, groceries and stuff. You don't know what's going to happen. So like part of me was like, well, I don't feel I can justify the money on things that just aren't important right now. And two, I was like, I don't know, is this really worth going to? So ultimately I decided not to go, but hindsight, I'm glad, but anyway, yeah. So we have a character here. He works at a laboratory. It's got one of those things
who's
where
he?
you put the vial, I can't remember his name. They
Oh
put the
yeah,
vials
yes.
in the,
Yeah, they show some other doctor. There's somebody in a medical lab, and yeah, it's spinning the blood around. And instead of paying attention to his job, he's watching
yeah, he's
wrestling
like
or
watching the
something.
game
Oh
or
yeah, his
something.
basketball game. So he's looking over at the basketball
Yeah.
game, cheering, and decides to stick his hand in basically a blender, and blood splatters everywhere. He cuts himself.
It cuts
Yeah,
his glove. Then he goes to a movie, and yeah, he's getting everybody sick there and going out and coughing all over while the
like
concession
up to this
stands.
point, the movie had been fairly serious and realistic, and now it's just showing people in the dumbest light possible, which is where, to me, like this movie, it ramps up okay, then it surfs along a plateau for a minute, and then just drops. But we'll get through to that.
Okay, I hate to sound like cliche, but the third act was when they're
It's
stealing
an
the
action movie.
helicopter, and yes, exactly. It was like they ran out of steam, and it's just like this race against time where they're going to this city and cutting in line to get this information, and having some secretary, I have a friend who works at the police station. How good of a friend? Well, his wife doesn't approve. Like she's the other woman, and it's trying to be funny there, and it just like they're like going around and having helicopter dog fights and whatever, and it got kind of really silly there. I was with it up until like
It
that
turned
point.
from Silence of the Lambs investigating something to Independence Day, basically, like your big dumb action movie from the mid '90s, and
Yeah.
it gets so ridiculous. Although I will say I did enjoy Cuba Gooding Jr.'s flying. Like I thought that was fun.
Okay.
The,
Flying
yeah,
under the
the
bridge
movie
and
has a
stuff,
pretty
and
scary premise already, like the idea of a virus spreading out of control. I mean, today people are freaking out. It's not even nearly as bad. Like
right.
you remember the swine flu, like that was worse than this so far. And people are freaking out
Okay,
way
let's see.
worse.
We've had swine flu, bird flu, West Nile.
Y2K.
Yeah, Y2K. It's going to get to this point. I think we're going to have something every 3 to 5 years or something. There's going to be something new. But yeah, this is definitely going to be one for the books. Like we're going to look back, and this is how 2020 is going to be defined.
I was thinking because there's another monkey in this movie. There's two monkeys. There's the monkey that's spreading the disease, or that started the disease. He didn't really give it to anybody else after the pet store. And then there was a monkey in the pet store that started to eat the banana that the sick monkey, or the monkey with the virus, was eating. So like when it
Right.
scratched the guy, like the one dude was giving it a banana, and then the banana flew over by the other monkey. The other monkey grabbed it, ate it, got sick. And I was wondering how they made the monkey act sick. Did they tranquilize it? It seems like that's something that could have been in the trivia.
I think you can train them pretty well. I bet you can get him to lay down like that, and just I don't see that being an issue.
Maybe, but I was doing too good of a job of acting sick. Like I almost feel like, yeah, just give it like a sleeping pill. It'll act groggy for a minute, and we'll record it.
I bet you could get it to do that. But anyway, that's neither here or there. So this monkey's getting sick.
Speaking of training animals, I watched Beastmaster, which I'm hoping we'll do at some point. There was some interesting trivia on the animals in that. Anyway, okay, keep going.
All right, okay. So yeah, they're seeing that the second monkey is actually infected and he's sick. They're trying to test some things on him, but nothing's really working at that point. And this whole town's getting sick. The military comes in and
cordons
they're
it off.
closing the town, all the roads, everything. This whole town is surrounded. They're having people stay in their homes, and eventually they have to they're going like door to door testing them. Certain people that are tested are having to go to like these temporary, hospitals or whatever for this. And, we kind of get this little side story where, this mother has to leave her husband and child because she was tested positive, and it's getting to the point where, they're talking about we might have to do what we did back in the 60s on, this American town, which to think of that actually happening, like, I don't even know.
There was a part when the military was flying into that town and they were getting like set up, and they were doing it very quickly, where basically there was a tent that kind of just set itself up. Did you see that?
I did. Was it like where like air was going into it?
It was something like that. It was incredible, I thought.
That's the thing, you're walking away with it. How do they do that tent?
Yeah, I made I made a note of that tent because I thought it was so cool.
I have a pop tent. When you take the strap off, you throw it out away from you and it pops out. It's pretty cool.
Oh, well, there you go.
I'll show you.
Have you ever been camping?
Very little.
Because like setting up a tent sucks, and then just to see this big military tent, like basically they hit a button and it just boop, it's up.
Anyways, continue.
I'm trying to remember where we are in the movie. Okay, so they're
quarantining this town.
Yeah, it's getting pretty bad. It's funny, even though it's like in California, they got to make everybody that wants to rebel against the government like hillbillies.
Hicks are the real virus.
So of course, yeah. My note says, of course, the town with the pickup trucks, mullets, and goatees would be the ones to break the quarantine and fight the army. They're not successful, but yeah, they're like, yeah, I'm getting out of here. Yeehaw! And they hop in their pickup truck with their hats on and their mullets sticking out the back. Like, of course, it's going to be these guys. It would. It's just so stereotypical.
What are they trying to say with that?
I think everybody knows that the military just hates
Hicks. Okay, so so this town's getting quarantined. People are being taken from their homes and having to go to these like temporary hospitals. Dustin Hoffman, he's figuring out some things, and that's about the time they go on this little whirlwind adventure across were they still in California? Did they go, what state did they go to, or were they in the same state?
They're in California, and then Dustin Hoffman, Rene Russo, Cuba Gooding Jr., and Kevin Spacey.
Right, but I'm saying when Cuba Gooding Jr. and Dustin Hoffman left to go do their stuff.
Well, they're all there trying to figure out what's going on, and then while they're all working on it, Dustin Hoffman is also having a war of words with Morgan Freeman, like, why aren't you doing anything? We could be doing this, that.
He was supposed to be sent somewhere else. He found out his wife, ex-wife, whatever, was being sent there. He wanted to be there too. So he like makes up this story with the pilot of the plane that, oh no, that order's been changed. I am going here now. So he ends up there and he's kind of wanted.
They do some investigating. They find out where the virus started. This started with this monkey that is lost in the woods, but actually now it is friends with a little girl out in the middle of nowhere. So there's this weird scene where the little girl's talking about how she has this friend monkey that comes to her window every night, and they lure the monkey out. They get the girl to lure the monkey out with some candy.
But yeah, that was a little silly. So they go to the place where he stole the monkey from, and eventually they're interviewing like all the guards and the employees, and this guard eventually spills the beans. Yeah, I let this guy go with this monkey, and he shows a picture of it on the news. And at this point, the little girl has drawn a picture of her little monkey friend, and the mother sees it and realizes, she thinks her daughter's just, having a dream or just imaginary monkey friend. She realizes, this issue is caused by this monkey that my daughter's actually seen. So yeah, they go to this woman's house and they're trying to get the girl to lure the monkey out while Cuba Gooding Jr. has a little sharpshooter dart, to shoot it.
Yeah, it looks like a pellet gun or something.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I can't remember if that happened before or afterwards, but from this point on, the movie is basically Dustin Hoffman and Cuba Gooding Jr. flying from point to point to point. And there's a part where they have to go find this Chinese ship because they find out
Yeah.
that Chinese ship is where the monkey came from. That's how they found out it was the monkey. So yeah, they go out to that ship. There's nowhere for him to land on the ship. He has to jump off the helicopter onto the boat. The guy that was playing with the monkey at the beginning of the movie, he's the only one that's dead now. So somehow the virus, they contained it to just him.
Yeah, they put him in like the freezer.
Yeah, and he's looking through. Dustin Hoffman's going through like all of his stuff, and he sees a picture of the guy. And the guy must have really loved the monkey because he's got pictures of himself and that monkey that was only in contact with him for a ship ride all over his bed. And then they fly back out. At this point, they're wanted by the military. So not only are they flying out into the middle of the ocean to catch this Chinese ship, they're flying back to find this house and visit the store where the monkey was going to be sold.
And then they go to a newsroom to get on the air.
They take a newsroom hostage. It's so ridiculous.
And then the B story is that Kevin Spacey, he's, they're working around the clock. He's fallen asleep. He's not paying attention. He gets caught on something. It rips his suit. He freaks out. He runs to the shower.
Somebody that should know better. And he doesn't say anything.
Well, I mean, it's not that he was being careless. It was that they were trying so hard, working around the clock, that he
was tired and made a mistake. That's fine. But then he covered it up, didn't say anything, and spread it. They never said anything. That's when they found out that there was a tear, though. He didn't tell anybody that there was a problem until then.
I don't remember it that way. I remember he gets infected. He starts getting sick. He starts going into shock, and Renee Russo, she's getting like a syringe to like.
Yeah, that's how she gets
because
it.
He's shaking so violently while she's trying to stick him. She ends up cutting herself with the needle. So now she's got it. I don't remember him continuing to work with it.
No, he didn't say anything before he collapsed and started shaking. Like, he didn't tell anybody that there's a problem with his suit. Yeah, because when he got out to the locker room, she asked, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm just tired."
Oh, okay.
And then he covered it up.
All right, my apologies then. It's like I said, it's been like 2.5 weeks since I've seen it. I don't remember that part.
So not only were we treated to the parade of morons earlier, but then Kevin Spacey's going to be a moron too. Like, even if you made a mistake, that's fine. Right. But then tell somebody, like, "I think I might have it," and he didn't.
So yeah, so basically now his wife, ex-wife, whatever, has it. His friend and colleague has it. He's trying to save this town. He's trying to save, it spreading to the rest of the country. So there's a lot riding on this. So I understand and they're not getting the support they need from their higher ups. So he's kind of going rogue a little bit to do this. And I get the motivation. It just seemed kind of silly. Like you said, it seems like they're ramping up the action to, really
just
make it exciting. Yeah.
It could have just been all story driven and like, I guess maybe for us, because we're both fans of like, Star Trek, The Next Generation, stuff like that, where we're used to seeing like, it's not really an action show, or it wasn't. It was more about just like, there's a mystery. Well, let's solve it. And then we watch how they get there.
Right.
And that's how come this movie was kind of going. Like I brought up Silence of the Lambs earlier. There weren't a whole lot of action scenes in that. There was a little bit of a standoff towards the end in the dark house, but like, other than that, it was her trying to solve the mystery of who the serial killer was. And that's a good movie. You didn't need to have like crazy helicopter battles and all that stuff to get people to watch it. It's considered a pretty great movie, right?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I don't know though, is it the type of thing where, when they show dailies to these studio execs,
oh yeah,
do they say, "Hey, it needs more action"?
Yeah, for sure.
You need, it may not have been Wolfgang Petersen's thing. He might have been overridden on that. I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to just give him a pass, but I mean, that could.
Well, when it comes to the story, it's not really the director, right?
Well, I mean, they're kind of the boss, but then they still have people they answer to. So it could have been that they were pushing him to do more. Hey, this movie just came out. You got it. This picture's got to be more like that one. Put some action in there. Have a big chase of some kind.
studio interference can be a good thing or a bad thing, and I guess finding the right balance is not an easy thing to do.
Yes. So let's see, where are we at here? So finally, they get that monkey. The little girl lures it. He zaps it. Okay, great. They're at this point. The Morgan Freeman has finally released the one cure that they had on ice, and
but it doesn't work on the new strain,
right? Because it mutated. Okay, so he's trying to get this new thing. He up and running as quick as possible. But by this point, they have decided we're going to have to do the same thing we did with that village back in the day. We're going to drop this bomb on this small American town.
Ordered by the president, because they gave the president a demonstration of how the virus could spread by showing a map with dots and then filling it all red.
Yes. So it's this race against time to not only get the cure and get it moving, but also to convince this plane that's carrying the bomb to stop. So while they, I think, quickly do that, they get back in the helicopter to have a standoff with this plane and have a conversation over the radio about it.
Don't forget the helicopter chase scene where they had to fire the rockets into the woods to make it seem like they blew up, and they go under the bridge.
Yeah, they were doing that, and then at one point they were on the highway, but they were like hovering right above a semi or something.
Yeah, to avoid radar.
Yeah.
There are parts where I just started laughing in this movie.
Oh man, if we ever watch, there was this one Dirty Harry movie. I think it was the last one, the fifth one. I'm trying to remember what it was called. There was some ridiculous stuff in that. I watched it, I was laughing out loud. Some of the goofy stuff they were doing in that movie.
I've maybe seen one of the Dirty Harry movies, so I wouldn't mind doing that.
All right.
I'm interested. So yeah, basically it comes down to it. There's the bomb. They convinced the airplane not to drop the bomb on the town. Then we get the scene at the end where it's like, Lieutenant arrests.
Well, there's the big
colonel.
fake out. There's the last big fake out where the bomb is dropped, and you're, oh no, there it comes. It's it's got a parachute, so it's slowly falling down. But you see, they dropped it over water.
They drop it into the ocean and explode all the fish to no consequence. And then they arrest Donald Sutherland. Morgan Freeman says, arrest this man, and nobody's going to do it. And then the mustache guy that he's been picking on the whole time.
How can we forget about that guy?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's basically it. Shall we give the ratings?
Yeah. Before we do that, if you want to hop back over to that room, I had one more short video. It's a 4-minute video. It's actually Siskel and Ebert talking about the movie, and I thought it was a pretty entertaining clip.
Oh, okay.
So we can play that for our audience here.
Dustin Hoffman and Rene Russo play scientists in a life-and-death struggle with a killer plague virus. An Outbreak, one of 5 new movies we'll review this week on Siskel and Ebert. I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune, and our first film is Outbreak. And here's a picture with a big star that's drawing big crowds, and I thought he, Dustin Hoffman, and the story were often ridiculous. In the picture, Hoffman plays an Army colonel involved in disease control, and he and 2 assistants go to Zaire to investigate a plague. I think Dustin Hoffman in his spacesuit looks like he just walked in from a Woody Allen comic. Another cornball element in the story is that Dustin Hoffman is still involved with his ex-wife, played improbably by the bombshell Rene Russo. As the disease spreads to the United States, we meet 2 high-ranking officers, one good, Morgan Freeman, one bad, Donald Sutherland, who is willing to blow up a California town to save the rest of the country. And then there's the laughable conclusion, a helicopter battle over disease containment. Sure, the filmmakers felt that they had to make a traditional action picture out of this material because they thought mainstream audiences wouldn't go for the excitement of science. But it's all so silly. I didn't think Dustin Hoffman was the least bit credible as an Army colonel. Rene Russo belongs more with Mel Gibson, as she was in Lethal Weapon 3. Hey, I didn't like much of anything about Outbreak.
You sure didn't. You must have had a bad day when you saw this movie.
No,
I thought it was terrific entertainment. It really is. And it's very smart at the beginning. You're wrong to say they don't think people are interested in science, because the first hour and 10 minutes has all to do with science, and it's fascinating, including that really interesting tour of the microbiological lab and the way they have different
beginning.
containment areas.
In the beginning, then why do they have to come up with the backstory of him and his wife, Roger? Didn't you think that was kind of silly?
I thought it was pretty well written, actually. And, you know, Renee Russo, to call her a bombshell is kind of insulting. She's a very attractive, mature, smart woman, and I thought she made a good partner for Hoffman. I also
in other words, you thought that was a credible relationship between the two of them?
Why not? Why not? Why not? They're both involved in the same academic field, of course. And why wouldn't an Army colonel look like Dustin Hoffman if his area was containing viruses? He shouldn't look like John Wayne. I mean, he spends all of his time looking through a microscope. And I've got another question for you. How should somebody look in one of those suits?
There was only one person that I laughed at. The variable was not the suit. The variable was Dustin Hoffman.
Well, why in the world shouldn't Dustin Hoffman be able to...
He looks like Benjamin Braddock in the suit. He looks ridiculous.
I was going to try to get that out of you. I knew that's the identification you were making, and it's not fair to this movie.
Why? It is absolutely fair. That's my reaction to it.
I think if the guy has to put on the suit, let him put on the suit. When he stands inside of it, that's the way he looks.
But he looks
What are
silly.
they
Dustin
even
Hoffman has a
arguing
whole
about
different
at this
you. I think you're the only person in
What am I
America
supposed to do?
that
Say
he looks
give
silly
reviews
to.
of what you
Yeah,
think
but
of
it's
the
just
movie? Sure,
ridiculous.
give
So
it a review.
anyway, I thought I thought that their little exchange there was pretty humorous, and I think they're both right and both wrong. Normally, between the two, when I go back and look at their stuff, I agree with Ebert more. Like, I think he's more like the level-headed one. I think I think he's right about there's nothing wrong with Dustin Hoffman being in there, and I don't think there's anything wrong with Renee Russo being in there. I thought they were both fine. But I think that Siskel was right when he says that the movie was pretty ridiculous.
I only agreed with him when he talked about the ending, when it got to, you know, the big chase scenes and, you know, running from here and there. I'll agree with him because I thought the same thing. That's when it got silly. I didn't think the first, you know, part of the movie was that bad. You know, you're wearing a hazmat suit. That's kind of what you have to do. Like, why does it look so ridiculous for Dustin Hoffman?
Yeah, I don't know why they were arguing about the suit like that, but whatever. So, yeah, I had never seen this movie before. You said that you had seen it before.
So like I said, 2-3 weeks ago, I saw it. Before that, I saw it probably when it came out in video. So this came out, 95? So I probably saw it sometime in 95 when it came out on video, or 96.
I may have had the book. They may have sold this at a book fair at our elementary school. I don't know why.
Yeah. That seems like a heavy read for a kid.
Anyway, I never read it. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah, I never read it. So anyway, yeah, my first time viewing it, it started off not too bad, pretty interesting, and then some of the scenes were just so intense, like when they bombed that village at the opening, and when they go back to that other village. Those were both pretty strong scenes, and then from there it kind of petered out. And as stupid and ridiculous as it was, I kind of had fun with Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character when he was flying around, like him and Dustin Hoffman. Even though the movie was supposed to be serious, they kind of had a comedic relationship together, and it was fun watching those two together as they were trying to evade the military and go from place to place. As stupid as it was, I'd have to give the movie, I'll say a C-.
Yeah, so I thought the movie started off pretty good. I think it got silly. I think, you know, maybe Donald Sutherland was a little over the top bad guy. Like, I mean, I get.
Yeah, if he had a mustache, he would have been twirling it.
Yeah, I get where it's a big decision. It's a big issue. They didn't play him like as if he wanted to find a cure or he was trying everything he could first to save this town. It seemed like he was just, you know, it's just easy if we just drop the bomb. Like, they didn't give him any layers there.
I couldn't figure out exactly why they were so resistant to the cure.
Yeah, now Morgan Freeman, he did have those layers where, you know, he's butting heads with Dustin Hoffman. I think he at his core, he didn't want to do this either, but he knew like sometimes we're just going to have to get our hands dirty. So like, it seemed like he was struggling with this decision. Donald Sutherland was just like, you know, let's just make it easy and do it. I had no problem with Dustin Hoffman. One of the problems I did have is, okay, we see his wife, ex-wife, whatever, recover. We never find out what happened with Kevin Spacey.
I'm pretty sure he died.
They never show it or say it that I'm aware of. And I thought there should have been a scene where we see him like recovering. They never show that. It's, you know, this kind of weird thing where at first they're, you know, a lot of buddy with him, with Dustin Hoffman and Kevin Spacey. Then it's kind of him and Cuba Gooding Jr. They almost just drop him off. But the first half of the movie I had no problem with it. It was the last half that kind of got goofy. I like Dustin Hoffman. I mean, I'm not the hugest fan of his, but like movies I've seen him in, he's always seems to be good to me. I like Cuba Gooding Jr. Rene Russo, besides this, and like he said, Lethal Weapon 4, I think she was in the Thomas Crown Affair, which I seen once. I don't remember much about it. I think it had what's his face, James Bond in it, Pierce Brosnan.
I like Rene Russo. She's also in the Major League movies and in the Thor movies.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's how unmemorable those are to me.
Yep.
But Donald Sutherland, he seems like one of those guys. He's always a bad guy. I can't think of anything with him as anything else. Morgan Freeman's pretty good. I'm gonna go. I was thinking a C- as well.
All right, so hopefully this recording turns out okay, and there aren't too many goof ups other than when we say stupid things, particularly me this episode. But yeah, we hope everybody out there is staying safe and not letting it get to them. Maybe more family time. Look at the positive and keep up that search for toilet paper.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that kind of brings me comfort is, we're all in this together. It's affecting everybody, not just here in the U.S., but, around the world. So use common sense. Stay home. Stay safe.
It's not the end of the world. It'll be over soon. And hopefully our episodes will cheer you up. Or maybe they'll use them to kill the virus.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for listening.
Yeah, hopefully we can knock a few of these out of the park. We got nothing else to do, so... And hopefully the next movie is something we're both a little more interested in and have more to say, and it's a little more fresh in our heads. Well, thanks for tuning in. Signing off.
Bizzle.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to travel through time. I bid you adieu.
Don't stop now!
You can't go! All the plants are gonna die!
Where are you going?
I've got to return some videotapes.
Bye, Felicia.
Hey, what about Billy D. Williams? Wouldn't his name technically be William Williams?